This morning, we have a special guest, Dr. Lionel Allen. He teaches a signature pedagogy course on cycles of injury, co-leads the full-year residency course for aspiring school teachers, and the second of two courses that are part of the instructional leadership sequence. Good morning, Dr. Allen. How are you?
I'm fantastic. Thank you for having me. Good to be with you this morning.
I'm so excited that you're here because I think about you a lot, especially when we talk about education in this country and what's happening and what's not happening. And we talked about your book on the family meeting. I should have told the audience that you are part of the family meeting radio show on Sundays.
Right.
But before we dig in deep, I just read something brief. You want to let our listening audience get to know you a little bit?
Sure. Again, thank you so much for having me, and good morning to you and to all your listeners and everybody behind the scenes that's making today's show happen. My name is Lionel Allen Jr., native Southsider. I'm a professor of educational policy studies at the University of Illinois at Chicago. I've been there since 2018, but I spent about 20 years in public K-12 education as a teacher, school administrator, and network leader. So I've spent the entirety of my professional life attached to the schoolhouse. I feel very fortunate to do something that I love to do and have done it for a long time. And now I have the blessing of being able to develop the next generation of school leaders. So essentially what I do is I train, teach, and provide leadership coaching to folks who are either leading schools now or aspire to lead schools in the near future.
Thank you so much. May I call you Lonnie?
Of course.
Okay.
Of course.
Thank you so much. So now let's go back to my question. What are we going to do? What are your thoughts? And I want you to be really honest with our audience today.
Yeah. We're living in times of great uncertainty in many aspects of our lives, and education is one of those. So the fundamental rights that we have that's under attack, unfortunately. Mm-hmm. And we knew this was coming. Anyone who read any excerpts of Project 2025 knew that the Trump administration was committed to eliminating the U.S. Department of Education, as he believes that, education should be sort of overseen by states. And in some ways, that's right. Like the Constitution says, any power is not delegated to the United States by the Constitution, nor prohibited by it to the states, are reserved to the states, respectively, or to the people. So education and the management of schools is, in fact, a state responsibility. But we also know that we have a history in this country of states not providing equal access and opportunity to all citizens. Yep. And so the federal government throughout history, but formally in 1980, when the U.S. Department of Education was established, has played a major role in protecting the rights of historically minoritized students and families, but also providing a great deal of funding to schools, supplementing state funding. And a lot of that funding goes directly to people who live in poverty. Mm-hmm. It goes to people who have disabilities. When we think about the Office of Civil Rights, which is an arm of the U.S. Department of Education, they make sure that students who have disabilities or English language learners, or again students who live below the poverty line, are provided with supplemental funding and access to programs so that they can have a robust, well-rounded educational experience. And so, we cannot rely solely on the states. The states have not shown us that they have the ability nor the willingness in some parts of our country to provide everyone with a high quality, comprehensive educational experience. So we should be worried, right? We should be worried, but we also know that we have to organize. We have to come together. Educators have to be, as I put it, strategically subversive. They have to be willing to find ways to meet the needs of the children and families that they serve. And we might have to get creative and innovative, because a lot of the support that we've gotten historically from the federal government, we probably won't have moving forward.
So, Lonnie, you are boots on the ground, right? So what suggestions? I know that we're saying we've got to get together to make things happen, but what specifically do you think educators can do right now? Especially, I don't know if you saw this, but a woman, she may have been in Iowa. She called a child by the name the child wanted to be called, and she got fired because where she lives, the city. Do you remember do you remember?
I know the story. I don't know where it was.
Yeah, and so things like that. How can an educator do the things that they need to do without losing their job? Because if they lose their jobs, then we lose that voice. So what advice do you have for this situation that we're in?
Yeah, that's such a great question. And I did hear that story that the teacher referred to the student by their preferred name, and that was considered a violation, and they were dismissed from their position. Yep. We have to walk a fine line. I say all the time, even as a principal, there were times where I had to enforce a policy, or I had to take a approach to leadership, or I had to implement an idea that I wasn't necessarily 100% in favor of, and I had to find ways to filter it to the people that I was leading and help them make connections to what we were already doing and how we can figure out how to make this work. This is a little bit different because we're talking about a situation where teachers have been given very direct sort of guidelines and rules that they have to follow. So my suggestion is, look, we have to find ways to continue to do the work that we know is important, but we have to do it within the guidelines that we've been given. And that's the difficulty because, look, the reality is this. A high-quality educator, someone who loves kids and is doing everything that they can to protect kids and provide a great educational experience to students, they are of no value if they are fired from their jobs because they did not follow the policy, right? And so while folks don't want to hear this, the harsh reality is if your local community has said, right, that we cannot refer to students by their preferred names, so we have to operate within these boundaries, then you got to operate within those boundaries while also at the same time trying to figure out how can I continue to make kids comfortable and speak to the reality of the situation. Like, look, here's what I'm faced with, but I'm still committed to doing what's right for kids, and I'm going to make sure that I hold on to my job for as long as I can, while figuring out ways. And educators, we have to be creative because we've always operated with not enough funding. We've always operated with constraints placed upon us that make our jobs very difficult. So we have a history of being able to respond to policies and legislation that, again, aren't necessarily in accordance with how we see education and what we think is best for our kids. So we have to continue to operate with that same level of creativity and innovation and say, okay, well, fine. If I can't refer to a kid by their preferred name, okay, that's fine. But I'm going to find other ways to affirm the identity of this student, right? I'm going to make sure that I prioritize establishing relationships with my students. I'm going to use this as a teachable moment and explain to my children, the children that I'm serving, the children that I'm teaching, what some of the challenges that we're facing as educators and how I'm working to make sure that I can follow those policies and honor the law that has been set or the legislation that has been passed, but at the same time, we're also going to pour into you and make you feel wanted and needed and heard and valued and make you feel like a human being. Because a lot of these things that we're seeing, particularly in this case, is really an attack on a child's humanity. Right? And it's unfortunate that we don't see it that way, that this, in my opinion, this is bigger than just an educational issue. This is an issue of whether or not we see the inherent humanity in every child, in every community, and the families that we serve, and when we fail to acknowledge that, we allow these types of things to happen in our schools.
Wow. Do you have a question, Karen? Lonnie, let me just introduce you to my guest this morning, Karen Byrne.
I'm Karen Byrne, and I'm a hanger-on this morning. But I have to say, what you just said just really hit home with me. I have a trans son, and I'm going to get a little weak. And he is 27, and when he was 16, came out as trans. Okay. And the high school, thankfully, the community that I raised my kids in and the high school that my kids went to had all of the programs in place and policies in place that, to be supportive to the LGBTQ community in general,
great.
but specifically my son was able to change his name with the school, although not legally. And I'm going to tell you, I truly believe, my child has always known unconditional love, and within my family, the acceptance was immediate. That's not to say there isn't a process, but I have to wonder, and we know that there are so many children out there that don't have that, and the suicide rate is the highest among some of these children. And I push out the darkest thoughts in my mind where my child would have been emotionally had it not been for the policies at the high school. And I'm not going to name the high school now because I don't want to say it on the air, but for obvious reasons. But that is, so I'm thinking as you're speaking that could go away, and so the same community that my child,
away, right?
I mean, it just, it's.
Yeah,
it is. It can go away, and it is going away, unfortunately. Yeah. And at the end of the day, this is what really troubles me. Look, we know that we are never going to agree with every piece of legislation or every policy, that we are confronted with as educators. I mean, that's been my professional life story. But as I said before, this is so much bigger than policy. We're talking about kids' lives. We're talking about their self-esteem. We're talking about whether or not they feel loved and cared for in our schools. And my heart breaks when I think about children who go to school every day and feel othered, that feel pushed to the margin, who aren't allowed access to the full depth and breadth of the academic experience, because I know the impact that school had on my life. Right? And I believe to my core that school saved me. I had great teachers. I had great administrators. I had people who poured into me. And I wouldn't be sitting here today talking to you if not for the school. And every child should have that same experience. And to think that we have politicians and board members who don't believe that every child should have that experience, and they will never say it. They'll never say that I don't believe all children should have access to a high-quality education. They'll never say that I don't think that every child should feel supported and cared for in their schools. But then they go and they support policies and they support practices that rip the humanity out of our schools. That's what this is about.
That's true.
Right? That's what this is about. And so, our children in our country, they have to go to school by law. Education is compulsory. I think until the age of 16 in most places. Yeah. Imagine being forced to go to a place where you don't see yourself in the curriculum, you don't see yourself in the experience, you don't see yourself in the teachers who teach you, and people make you feel like you are less than. And so many children, right, feel that way. And we're talking about before the attack on the U.S. Department of Education. This has been happening to black and brown kids for generations. This has been happening to LGBT kids for generations. It's been happening to poor white kids forever, right? And so now we know it's been happening anecdotally, and now people are now have the law, they have policy, they have endorsed practices now to say, well, look, I can't do this. They never really wanted to do it in the first place. I can't refer to a child by their preferred name. Like I can't implement a curriculum that is culturally responsive. I can't talk about the evils of slavery. But they never really wanted to do it anyway. And now, now they have policy. Now they have, in some places they have legislation.
Yeah, taking the books, all that. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. Lonnie, thank you so much for being here. Before you go, you want to plug your book, your fabulous book?
Yeah, sure. Thank you all for having me. I appreciate the conversation. So my new book is called Lead with C.A.R.E, Strategies to Build Culturally Competent and Affirming Schools. And in the book, I make the argument that as an educational community, we focus too much on outcomes. We focus far too much on results and not enough on the academic experiences that students are having. And so if we create cultures that are built upon the pillars of culture, responsiveness, affirmation, relationships, relationships and empowerment, and we create these positive school cultures, the students will love being in school and the results will take care of themselves. So it's a call to action to focus on creating positive learning environments for students and not focusing so harshly on educational outcomes and quantifiable metrics.
Dr. Allen, you are the man. Okay.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it, Paul.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Come see us on Sundays sometime, okay?
Absolutely. Take good care. Bye-bye.
All right. You have a good day and a great weekend.
You too. Bye.